Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the monastery, the open bar of the internet, the world's greatest shit show, and the place where we, the good brothers and sisters of this most holy of temples, seek enlightenment through the drunkest, craziest, and most batshit ways possible. I am your one and only gaming monk, better known as Mildra, and with me I have three newcomers into the temple. They are the triple-headed monster behind the old world Grim and Perilous, the Genesis adaptation of Warhammer Fantasy. We have, and I apologize in advance for any mispronunciation, Mariusz Szymański, Barbara Szymańska, and Dave Brown. I said I was going to screw it up, so truth in advertising.
I didn't know you were saying the last names.
Dave was fine, I guess.
Yeah. But how are you all doing today?
It's rainy, but it's fine.
Yeah.
So we connect with the weather in UK, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's not raining at the minute, which makes a change.
Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, wait a minute, it'll be raining, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, so for the record, Dave is the guy with a British accent. Mariusz is me, the guy with Eastern European accent.
And mine is mid-Atlantic. Like, partly British, partly American, a mixture.
But with that said, one of the traditions around here is opening with the humble beginnings, in a sense. So I'd like you to walk me through your first introduction, respectively, to role-playing games and what made it stick.
You mean the very first role-playing games of ours?
Just your first experience with the medium.
Oh, right. Well, maybe I'll start. I have a bit of a story about that. It was one of those terribly hot summers, and I was like, 16 or 17. And we had vacations, and it was very boring vacation. So our friend, he suggested maybe we'll play Warhammer Fantasy. Well, we were all like, okay, but what it is? You're some kind of warrior fighting goblins and stuff. So we were like, okay, cool. And the more we thought about it, the more the idea, the imagination, everything started, and we saw ourselves in fantastic adventures and stuff. But there was a problem. We didn't have a rulebook at that time. But our friend knew a friend who had that rulebook, but he was like about 10 kilometers in this scorching hot. But we were so hyped at the moment, we decided to go there. And we're going, and it was like about 2 hours later, we finally arrived at this guy's home, and he simply said that he doesn't have it anymore. So completely defeated, we get back to our to closer to our homes, and it seems that Ranald, the god of luck from Warhammer Fantasy, smiled to us because we met a guy who, seeing our long faces, asked what's wrong, and we said we wanted to play Warhammer Fantasy, and the guy who supposedly would have the rule book, he doesn't, and he was like, hey, it's a lucky day, here it is. And he actually had it with him, and that's how it started for me.
All right.
So it was lots of luck that day.
Yeah, I could see it.
Yeah, for me it's like I learned about role-playing games from Mariusz. And we've been together for 17 years, and I started playing Warhammer like 5 years ago. So I tried at the beginning, but I didn't like it because of the game master was really, let's say, whatever you did. Eventually, he was trying to, push you down or kill your character or whatever. You wanted to go left, he forced you to go right, and I really didn't like that. So I decided that role-playing games are, in general, not for me. But
It wasn't
when
me. I wasn't the game master.
he was the player actually. Well, it was funny that for all the years, Mariusz was like always the game master, always for all these 17 years, and he had hardly no chance of being the player in any games. Sometimes, in some random random place with random guys, but no longer campaigns. So probably also the guy who was at the game master at the time, he wasn't much experienced, and well, I think he didn't like me, and I also, so probably it was a nice experience. It's funny that we're actually now playing together as characters in the same campaign. But
Yes,
it
and
was a long time ago, right?
yes, it's Tomek, and he's also part of our Agreement Perilous team. Right now, he's doing additional writing, and also our published adventure is his actually. So it was a long road also for him.
Yeah. And actually, my first, let's say, system was our system. But before actually we made the rule book, we were guinea pigs of Mariusz's guinea pigs when he was trying to translate Warhammer into Genesis, and I was in the first, let's say, team who was doing the first steps in trying to play Warhammer on Genesis.
I can get that. Now.
And Dave.
Yep, Dave.
I first got into role playing probably around 2001 or 2002 when I ran into a guy in my local games workshop of all places, and he invited me to join his established group because I think he was missing a couple of players, and it was an established first edition Warhammer group, and I thought it sounded interesting, so I gave it a go, and I played with them for a number of years, mostly first edition. Although during that time I did run some second edition stuff with that same group, and until the group fell apart. And then I fell in with another group of people at my local wargaming group, and we started playing. Well, at that point I'd only ever played Warhammer first or second edition. But with this new group, they played all sorts. So that's when I learned about D&D and Savage Worlds and various other systems. And it was through one of those players who just picked up the first Edge of the Empire book, the Star Wars book, which I borrowed and read, and it just completely changed everything. The whole narrative system was completely different to the binary system of everything else I'd ever played, and I could never look at anything else the same way. And to date, the first edition, someone tried to run a second edition game, and the binary nature of it was just driving me up the wall. So I tried to convert Star Wars as it was, because this was pre-Genesis, to a Warhammer system, and it just ended up being ridiculously overcomplicated. And then I just fortunately saw a post of someone saying, "I'm doing a Warhammer conversion. Does anyone have a quick look?" And I thought, yeah, why not? It can't be any worse than what I've done. And that's kind of where I got stuck with editing English translations.
Mhm. Now,
And that's
oh, go ahead.
no, that's it. I got stuck being the English editor. Even though I've got no qualifications in English whatsoever, other than being a native speaker, which doesn't count for lots.
Yeah. But now Genesis is an interesting beast. I mean, I've covered my fair share of stuff with it proper, and well, a few years ago I did a whole retrospective on Star Wars games, and that included the FFG trilogy. But what was it about the Genesis system specifically that stuck with you guys? Since using that is a very deliberate choice.
I think Dave already shared his part of the story. For us, to be honest, I found Genesis purely accidentally. I was just browsing stuff that would, we were looking to try something new because we played a lot Warhammer Fantasy First and Second Edition. And after very bad end of campaign, where players' urgency was greatly reduced, and I was really disappointed in my game mastering in my part in this campaign. I was looking for something that would replace our current Warhammer Fantasy systems with something completely new. And I found that it was release year of Genesis, and I found that it's actually the same family of game systems as Warhammer Fantasy Third Edition. As it was something I had some blurry memories from earlier years when third edition came out.
Mm-hmm.
I had an opportunity to play one or two sessions, and I was completely blown by it at the time. It was so much more comparing to the first and second edition. Unfortunately, it was completely unavailable in Poland.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, the system, I don't think it was broadly available anywhere. Maybe in UK and States, but maybe not most other countries.
There wasn't even a translation for Polish, I guess, for the third edition.
Yes, and yeah, there wasn't a Polish translation. And so we bought Genesis. We played some warm-up session, and the possibilities to, to keep that, let's say, typical game master's role, but to move some of those game mastering tools to players. So like story points, interpreting dice pools, especially dice are amazing in this system. It's whole new, not even the second dimension, but even the third dimension they introduce. I know they are not maybe very. I know some people are reluctant to try it because of the symbols, and it seems all complicated. But to be honest, after 2 hours, the first warm-up session, we were good to go.
We have only one friend who still, after hours of playing, he still mistakes threats with with failures still, but he's only one.
Hmm. And I've
But it's easier. It's easy to count. You can, I don't know. You have to count at tops up to 10, so you don't have to, use calculator and add and complicated mathematical equations to determine whether you succeed or not. It's just one or two successes, one failure, and here he's a success. You have to count to 3.
and when it comes to, and I've seen that whole thing of oh it's so complicated. I think people make things more complicated than they really are sometimes. Just from my experience, or in some cases, complication is not as much of a binary as some would think, and it's really more of just taking a different approach in this kind of thing. I said that all those years ago when I covered the FFG trilogy, and I will say, given that, there's a few things in conversion from one to another that I'm curious how easy or difficult they were. And the first was the career system. Warhammer has a very, I won't say complex, but almost tumbleweed like series of connections when it comes to different careers and what you can get from individual careers. And was it easy to translate that into Genesis, or were there some aspects that were a little bit tricky?
Dave, what would you say?
I'm very thankful I didn't have to do the work.
It was a nightmare. It was the biggest part of the workload was to prepare the careers. At first, we tried to do something like Warhammer's first and second edition career system, but well, it just doesn't work. Pushing that rules into a system that doesn't support it completely.
Mm-hmm.
Bad idea. It was awful. Everything we wrote at that time went to trash, straight to trash. It was unplayable. Finally, I'm not sure if it wasn't Dave's suggestion. Maybe Dave wasn't there yet. I'm not sure. But from somewhere came the idea to use a system similar to Star Wars specializations. So you have that spec trees with talents, and well, I think that was it. What we added, and it was completely our idea, was that additional careers level. I think it's Basia, how we called it? Progress, specialization progression.
Specialization
system?
progression. Yeah.
Yes, when you unlock the next tier by buying specialized talents and skills, so your character, let's say he's starting as a squire, he can advance to knight and knight commander. Everything is a single spec tree, so theoretically they can be the squire the whole time. But unlock everything in the tree. Or almost
It's just
everything.
like the specialization progression gives you some additional perks, and some of the requirements are not just strictly mechanical, like you have to buy this and this talent. Sometimes you have to do something with connected to the story. So I don't know, achieve something, or I don't know, serve as somebody, whatever, or I don't remember, Mariusz, if you have any in mind, any specific examples, but not everything is connected strictly to the talents themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes. There are also some narrative goals to pursue in that system.
Yeah.
Do you remember
Not
any
every-
examples?
I think that Cat of Ronald, I mean that Master Thief, has to steal something very valuable and without a trace or something to become that level of career.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have something like it, and we did 48 talent trees, and all of them were tested. So it was the biggest part of the work, and of course artworks for
Yeah.
every of them. Artworks are not finished yet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there were supposed to be about 10 at the beginning of our work, and then we got 15 and 20, 25, 30, and it's the amount was growing and growing, and the pile of the illustrations they have to make is just never ending
Yes.
story.
People started using our conversion, and they also started requesting more and more stuff from us, and well, it was fun. It was fun doing all of this. We also had 3 groups of playtesters, so we were working closely with them, and exchanging feedback with
Sometimes
those people.
nerfing those characters, and
Yeah,
the players were not happy about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I can understand that. I mean, with second edition, you had a whole book just dedicated to careers, and there's a lot of them. I think I tried to make a tree of the careers that I was able to get access to, and after about 3 days, the tree was less of a tree and more of a tumbleweed, so I just stopped. And I'm guessing that there was an earlier take where you guys tried to use that talent pyramid that Genesis has, and it just didn't work. It sounds like.
Yeah.
Which I could certainly see. Now, I think one of the other big elephants in the room to contend with is utilizing magic, because Genesis has a magic, you can't see it, but I'm doing massive air quotes, system, but it is largely a collection of effects. It still takes a bit of work to actually make a spell list in the traditional sense, and it's usually based on keywords. So when it came to transferring that concept into the very defined magic system that Warhammer has, was it something that was easy to do? Was it something that was another nightmare? How did it pan out?
To be honest, that the magic system, I think, was one of the last parts of the, let's say, game design that Mariusz prepared. I guess because during our first campaign, we always had a wizard. I guess no, we had a wizard at the beginning. Then we didn't have a wizard, and then we had a wizard. So we had the guinea pig to test it on.
Yeah, the first wizard left our groups because of the rules for magic.
Yeah, he did.
So,
He wanted to play High Elf, the let's say, flame wizard, let's say, right? And he wanted to use flames, and he was disappointed that he couldn't, blow the whole building when he was just, a rookie, and he didn't like it.
Yeah. So yeah, he was really disappointed on that sketch of the magic system at that point, because that was, I would say, the mindset we had to change during the development of the conversion. Because our idea was to take rules from Warhammer Fantasy and move it to is, to be honest, it's contained, or it's almost everything is contained in the main rule set of Genesis. So it's more like a free-form magic system. Why? Because I think it's one of the best aspects of the system. To be honest, it's in my opinion, it's one of the best magic systems on the market, and it's great fun for people who know what they are doing and know the rule set. So after initial tryings, we decided to keep it as it is. We just divided magic actions and effects to colleges of magic. So not every college has every action. For example, bright wizards have access to flame effects in attack, but they can't heal people. And white wizard can heal people, but they can't curse people, for example, right? And the second part we did, we've added corruption system. And it's also not that complicated. It's replacing that table for spending threats and despair with our own. So if you had a threat on your dice, on your check, you probably caused some chaos manifestation, and it's bad. It's much worse than in plain Genesis. So
It's not corrupt, it's miscast, Mariusz.
Oh yes, it's miscast chaos manifestation, something like that.
So actually, we played for quite a long without the miscasts, and there was no, let's say, risk when you used magic. The only risk was that the enemies would focus you and try to kill you ASAP, because wizards are squishy. So that was actually the only threat they had. But when Mariusz introduced the miscast system, every use of magic, especially if you want to add more effects, let's say, okay, I want to use a spell that would throw the enemy, let's say, make a blow of the wind or something, right? Who would throw the enemy to the wall. But if also he wants, let's say, to strangle him somehow, or let's say stagger him, so he would have to add a difficulty level. So the risk of the miscast is much higher, and the harder the check is, the risk is grows rapidly, and you can also make, let's say I don't know, spawn a small demon, so you have one enemy extra, and that demon is focusing you, for example, right?
Yes, or turn yourself into a pickle, for example. And one additional cool thing we did in the system is every miscast increases severity of the next miscast in the encounter, not only for you, but for every spellcaster in the current encounter.
The enemy as well.
Yes, the enemy as well. reflect that meddling with winds of magic, the growing chaos in that particular place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can certainly get that.
It works similar like the crit system with Genesis, but it's not only for one character; it's for everyone in the encounter.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. And with that in mind, when it came, were there any? You mentioned that careers were tricky to work with. Were there any other things in particular from Warhammer Fantasy that required a bit more finesse to adapt into Grim and Perilous?
I would say the general trope of dark fantasy. Genesis is more about heroic stuff. Well, you're rather competent. Your character, I mean, is very competent from the very beginning, above the average level, and I would say many talents. I mean, help to reinforce that feeling. So we had to adapt the system to the more gritty style, to be more grim and actually perilous, right? So what we did mostly was creating the talent trees in a way that not everything is super powerful, or you have to spend additional experience points to increase ranks in skills that relate to talent to make it really powerful. So that XP investment is a bit bigger. Characters also are their starting experience is a bit lower, which well, they don't have that high stats at the very beginning. But mostly we tried to create adversaries, because there is that whole adverse example adversaries section. All of them are dangerous. Even random goblin can apply neurotoxin to you, so you're rapidly increasing your strain. We did it to feel that combat is not always a preferred option, to make it always a trade in resources. I mean, you're fighting, but it's almost we can be almost sure you will get some wounds or criticals. You can go insane, because we also introduced in the one of the latest updates. We also introduced insanity system. So yeah, keeping that closer to the ground, but characters are still quite competent. I would say you're starting on a level similar to first advanced career in Warhammer Fantasy, in let's say official Warhammer Fantasy systems. So it's not that, I don't know, you're not a dunk collector anymore. But someone a little bit more experienced and competent, but not a hero.
Yeah. Now, given that, I am curious. Earlier in the book, in fact, in the first few pages, you bring up Realms of Terranoth, and I'm curious if that was something that was when you guys were developing it, if that was something that was already out, or was it something that you guys utilized to help move things along in the development process?
Realms of Terranoff, I guess, was published a year and a half or 2 years after we started playing Warhammer on Genesis. So it was probably at the point where Mariusz had some loose notes, and we haven't, or we maybe started preparing the rule book. Let's say it was supposed to be a brochure. 30 pages, 40 pages tops, a brochure. Now we have a 200 pages rule book. So as you see, everything was evolving. The project ended completely in a different place that it was supposed to. So I guess Realms of Terranoff were a lot of help for Mariusz when it was released, I guess.
Yes, we took some weapon stats and some talents from Terranot. But I would say that's all. It
Not
wasn't.
Specializations. They don't have specializations there as well.
No. Actually, specializations were first published for Genesis. It was first published in Expanded Player's Guide, and it was
Okay.
after we published our first. I think it was 12 or 15 specializations.
Yeah,
right?
It's funny. I was having a conversation with one of my colleagues, Enix, about how he vastly preferred the skill tree system that was in the Star Wars trilogy to the talent pyramid that Genesis would eventually use.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not he wasn't the only one. I always when we were trying to play with the pyramid, I ended up taking some stupid talents that I have never used anymore apart from one session, and I regretted taking that talent and wasting my experience points for that. Or I didn't have the time to read 500 talents and pick one. It's easier to have when you have let's say a tree where you have, I guess, 16 talents or 20 talents, and that's it, and that's all you have to focus on. That makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, there's a phrase I've used in the temple called "guide damn it," also known as handbraking. Guide damn it is the term on TV tropes. Basically, when the solution to an issue is a little bit too obtuse for its own good. If you've played any point and click adventure game in the last, I don't know, 40 years or so, you've dealt with some form of this in those games. It's referred to as moon logic. You know, those puzzles that the solution is the kind of thing where there's no way a rational thinking human being could
And you're clicking everything on everything, trying just by trying, right?
Eventually you figure it out and it's like, wait, that's the answer? How was I supposed to think of that?
Mm-hmm.
Or you have to look at a guide to figure it out. And the same can happen with that talent system. I saw the same thing happen with the feat system back in third when there were way too many and there were certain traps because of Monty Cook. But it is interesting how that whole talent system debate has come along, because believe you me, you're not the only one who fell for that trap.
Yeah, it was a lot of work, but to be honest, I understand why Genesis went with that pyramid system.
Yeah, since it's trying to be a universalist game.
Yes, and to be honest, you can work with that to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
We played campaigns with Pyramid, not Warhammer Fantasy, but we had a longer post-apo campaign. And it was fine, but at the end of the day, when we started campaign in Twilight Imperium system, everyone asked for specialization trees.
Yeah.
So it sounds good. It can work, but at the end of the day, I think most of the players prefer predefined stuff.
And I've always advocated for archetypes because it's a nice little sweet spot. You know, it's not as rigid as traditional classes, but it's not so freeform that somebody isn't going to get lost as easily. A lot of people when I say, oh, I prefer that sort of thing, they're like, oh, you just want everything prepackaged, when that's never the case. It's more about giving people something to build around before they start doing the crazy shit. You know, you've probably heard the expression or some variation of, you need to understand the rules before you can break them.
Yes, and we fell in this trap multiple times.
Mm-hmm. And, well, playtesting, the whole point of that is to break the damn system.
Yes.
But
yes.
now I know that recent, I say recently, when I mean within the last few months, you had put up a significant update to the core book, and I believe you guys are also working on a side thing called Perilous Locations. What are some of the plans you guys have for the future of Grim and Perilous?
See illustrations.
Good,
Finally.
good question. So yeah, we Perilous Locations were actually pretty unique because it was a community-driven project. Most of the stuff there was sent from people that are playing they're using our conversion and are following us on social media. So our part was, let's say, the publishing part, maybe editing.
Well, you wrote also some of the locations, right?
Yes, I did, and so did Tomek. I don't think, Dave, you had some input there.
I don't think I wrote any locations. I think I almost certainly suggested some rewrites on paragraphs that didn't read very well in English.
Yes, but I'm pretty sure you also dropped some ideas there.
I probably did, but my memory's such that I don't remember what I had for breakfast. So, let alone what I did.
First or second breakfast?
Or third breakfast?
Probably
The
close to
fourth.
lunch, 11 a.m.
You know, everybody talks about brunch. Nobody talks about dinner. You know, lunch and dinner. I'm sure there's a better word for it. I just haven't figured it out yet. But with that said, I do want to sincerely thank you guys for taking the time to come all the way to my temple. And
Too much sacramental wine.
Sorry about that. Sorry about that. OBS decided to mess around with me a bit. And of course, a sincere thanks goes out to everyone who took the time out of their schedule to come onto the show and enjoy the madness. And there'll be plenty more where that came from, as there always is here, on the open bar of the internet. But until then, on behalf of the good brothers present and not present, my name is Mildra, I am your gaming monk. Stay fucking frosty, everybody!
Shinki